This is the Dr. Pi channel, and welcome. We're about to dive into the most critical semiconductor news hitting the wires this week. And believe me, what we're seeing is more than just news. It's a tectonic shift, a complete rewiring of the entire industry. We're calling it the Great Realignment.
That's right. The whole game is changing. The old alliances, the old supply chains, the old rules, they're all being thrown out the window. What's emerging is a brand new global chip map, and the battle lines are being redrawn as we speak.
And you know what triggered this earthquake? It all started with a single handshake. But this wasn't just any handshake. This was a $5 billion deal between two titans who used to be the fiercest of rivals. And folks, it's about to change, well, everything.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down for you. First up, we'll dig into that Bombshell alliance that sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley. Then, we're going to look at how the chip war is going from kind of cold to red hot. From there, we'll zoom out and see how the rest of the world is being forced to pick a side. We'll follow the money, and there's a lot of it, in deals, dollars, and development. We'll even peek into the future, beyond silicon, at the next big frontiers. And we'll wrap it all up with what you need to know, the investor's playbook.
All right, let's jump right in. The catalyst, the ground zero for this whole realignment, is this absolute bombshell of a partnership between NVIDIA and Intel. Seriously, if you told anyone this was going to happen even 2 years ago, they would have laughed you out of the room. Let's just let this number sink in for a second. $5 billion. This is not just some casual investment, okay? This is a fundamental strategic pivot. You've got NVIDIA, the absolute king of AI chips, pouring $5 billion into Intel, its oldest and most bitter rival. It's a sign of the times, a clear signal that in the all-out gold rush for AI dominance, old grudges don't just die, they get bought out to build new empires.
So you have to ask, what does each side get? Well, it's a brilliant, pragmatic truce. For NVIDIA, the 4% stake is nice, sure, but the real prize? It's finally getting a key to the one kingdom they could never conquer, the massive integrated graphics market that lives inside Intel's x86 chips. And for Intel, man, this is a lifeline. Getting NVLink is like getting a warp speed shortcut right back into the big leagues of AI data centers, and lets them go head-to-head with NVIDIA's own top-tier systems. It's like borrowing your rival's magic sword to get back in the fight. And to really get why this is such a game changer, you have to understand NVLink. Think of it as NVIDIA's secret weapon. It's their own private superhighway for data, connecting all their chips together. And when I say superhighway, I mean it. We're talking 1.8 terabytes per second. That's about 14 times faster than the standard tech, PCIe 5.0. This is the magic sauce, the moat around their castle that lets them build these absolutely monstrous AI supercomputers.
And you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to Jensen Huang himself. He's basically saying, this isn't just a partnership, it's an absorption. He's officially welcoming his old enemy into the NVIDIA empire. By wrapping Intel's massive x86 architecture into his NVLink ecosystem, he's building a kind of Team America for AI, a unified front that's going to be incredibly tough for anyone else to compete with.
Now, a move that big on the global chessboard doesn't just go unanswered. You better believe the reaction from Beijing was fast, it was sharp, and it basically poured gasoline on the simmering chip war, turning it into a raging fire.
I mean, just look at the speed of this. It's wild. On September 12th, the US drops more Chinese companies on its blacklist. 3 days later, 3 days, China retaliates, suddenly opening an antitrust probe into an NVIDIA deal from 4 years ago. 2 days after that, word gets out that China is telling its tech giants to stop buying certain NVIDIA chips. And the very next day, Huawei is on stage laying out a super aggressive roadmap. This isn't chess, folks. This is high-speed, tit-for-tat warfare playing out in days, not years.
And Beijing isn't just throwing one punch. They're fighting on all fronts. They're weaponizing antitrust law. They're telling their biggest companies, like ByteDance and Alibaba, to buy local. They're even opening up new investigations into simpler but still vital analog chips. The end game here couldn't be clearer. Funnel a ton of state money into companies like Huawei and build a completely separate, self-reliant AI world, one that's totally immune to American pressure.
And this quote from Huawei's chairman, this isn't just marketing speak. This is a straight-up declaration of war. Promising to double their chips' power every single year, that's throwing the gauntlet right at NVIDIA's feet. It's China telling the world, we're not just playing defense anymore, we're coming for the crown.
Okay, so we've got this heavyweight fight between the US and China. But here's the thing, it's not a two-player game anymore. The shockwaves are forcing everybody else on the planet off the fence.
What we're seeing is a mad dash, a global scramble for what they're calling technological sovereignty.
And this quote right here from Christina Cafara just nails the reason why. Think about it. Would any country be okay with a foreign power controlling its electrical grid or its water supply? No way. While the argument now is that your digital infrastructure, your AI, your data centers, is just as vital. And for countries in Europe and Asia, the idea of handing the keys to that kingdom to either the US or China is becoming totally unacceptable.
And that feeling is driving real policy. That's why you're seeing groups like the ESIA pushing hard for a bigger, badder EU Chips Act too. When you hear that Europe imports over 80% of its tech stack, you get it. This isn't about pride. This is about survival. They're desperate to build their own third AI stack so they don't end up as a digital colony of Washington or Beijing.
And it's not just Europe. Look at Japan. They are making a huge defensive move, pumping 536 billion yen, that's roughly $3.6 billion US, into Micron's operations there. And their strategy is laser-focused. They want to lock down their own domestic supply of advanced memory chips. They see that in the AI era, high-bandwidth memory isn't just some component. It's a strategic choke point. And they are making damn sure they control their own.
All right, you know the saying, follow the money. And that's exactly what we're going to do now, because these massive geopolitical shifts are being funded by absolutely mind-boggling amounts of cash, from both private VCs and government treasuries.
So let's look at the private side first. The venture capitalists in the Valley are placing some huge bets on companies trying to disrupt the big guys. You see Grok raising a massive $750 million for their super specialized AI chips. That's a bet that maybe GPUs aren't the only answer. Then you have upscale AI grabbing $100 million for the networking tech that connects all these chips. The smart money is flowing into the cracks and gaps of this new AI world.
But then you look at how governments are spending money, and it's a totally different story. While the VCs are chasing the next big thing, the governments are playing defense. They're all about securing their home turf. You see Japan's multi-billion-dollar play for memory with Micron, and right here at home, Texas is putting up $250 million to help Samsung build an advanced factory. That's a pure national security play to bring critical manufacturing back to the US.
So, where is all of this headed? Well, the fight is already moving beyond just making silicon wafers faster. We're talking about whole new frontiers in advanced manufacturing, exotic new materials, but at the same time, there are some really scary bottlenecks looming that could stop this whole revolution in its tracks.
One of the hottest frontiers right now is 3D IC manufacturing. The easiest way to think about it is building skyscrapers with chips, stacking them vertically. Why? Because it makes the data travel shorter distances, which means everything gets faster and more power efficient. It's absolutely key for the next wave of AI. That's why you see a dream team in Taiwan, TSMC, Amkor, and Cadence, coming together to crack this incredibly hard problem.
And then there's the really futuristic stuff, like barium titanate photonics. All you need to know is this. It's a new material that lets us move data using light instead of electricity, and it does it way better, faster, smaller, and with a lot less power. See, the chips are getting so fast that the real problem is just getting data in and out of them. This tech could be the answer, and building a secure supply chain for it in the US is a huge deal for the future.
But for all this high-tech talk, here's a number that should honestly keep everyone up at night. 140,000. That's the projected shortfall of skilled electricians and technicians we're going to have in the US in just a few years. Think about that. We can design the most brilliant chips in the world, and we can spend billions building factories. But if we don't have the people to actually wire them up and get them running, the entire AI boom just stops.
Okay? We've covered a ton of ground. So let's bring it all home. For all of you watching, the investors, the professionals, what's the playbook here? In this new, fractured, chaotic world, how do you actually navigate the great realignment? All right, here are the key takeaways. Number one, the game is now US versus China, full stop. This new Intel NVIDIA powerhouse forces that dynamic. Number two, supply chains are now a weapon. A company with a secure, friend-shored supply chain has a massive, defensible advantage. Think of it as a geopolitical moat. Number three, bet on the third way. As Europe and Japan spend billions to build their own capabilities, there will be huge opportunities. Number four, the real money is now being made around the chip, in advanced packaging, new materials, and yes, even in solving that skilled labor shortage. And finally, number five, just follow the money. The fire hose of cash from both governments and VCs is telling you exactly where the future is headed.
And all of this leaves us with one massive, overarching question for the next decade. In this new world, what's the winning move?
Is it creating powerful strategic alliances like NVIDIA and Intel have done? Or, when the chips are down, is total, absolute technological independence the only prize that's really worth winning?
There's a lot to think about there. Keep listening to the Dr. Pi channel. If you got value from this breakdown, do us a favor and hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to see it. Thanks for tuning in.